course, yeah. Okay, so as of today, SNL has indefinitely suspended a comedy writer for making a joke on Twitter. The joke was, Barron is gonna be the first homeschool shooter. Now I know what you're thinking, hold on, that's hilarious. Yes, it is. Or maybe you're thinking, that is awful. Yes, it is. You may be thinking, whew, you would have to have a pretty sick sense of humor to make a joke like that. In fact, someone who has such an off-kilter sense of humor should maybe, put it to good use and perhaps funnel their disillusionments with life into something productive like comedy. Oh, I wonder what we should do to punish this person for making such a joke. Probably fire them from comedy. And you might be thinking, you know what, Elliott? That joke both mocks a child and school shootings. I know. It's that good. Jeff Ross once said, if it doesn't offend somebody, it's probably not a joke. And Stephen Fry once said, it's now very common to hear people say, I'm rather offended by that, as if that gives them certain rights. It's actually nothing more than a whine. I find that offensive. It has no meaning, it has no purpose, it has no reason to be respected as a phrase. I'm offended by that. Well, so what? Here's the thing, some jokes are offensive. Not to me, but I've heard stories. Now, at the risk of this being one more I hate political correctness rant, allow me to quickly say, I was gonna say more, but apparently there's a garbage truck outside my apartment. It's 7:15 at night. Some jokes are so offensive to certain people that it alters their perception of the person making that joke. And that's perfectly natural and great. And it causes them to not like the comedian anymore. It happens. Life goes on. Okay, so here's the big, philosophical, thing that I'm trying to operate from here. We, as human beings, are free. We are free to make jokes, and we're free to be offended. Both those things are options in life. And neither party is wrong. It is the ignorance of the young comedian, not the bravery, that cries foul at an offended audience. You know who said that? Ricky Gervais. I'm just kidding. I made it up myself. Anybody can sound deep when they want to sound deep. Doesn't mean they read. The only thing more annoying to me than somebody getting so offended at a comedian's joke that they leave the club is a comedian getting offended that someone got so offended that they left the club. It's a two-way street, Vinny. Vinny is this archetypical comic that I have in my head who represents all the really old skeezy road comics who just are super bitter and ironically angry at everything. Not ironically angry, but it's ironic that they're angry because they're... Here's what I disagree with, though. This whole argument of, is there anything off limits in comedy? Elliott, do you think there's anything off limits in comedy? Elliott, is there anything off limits in comedy? Elliott, when it comes to comedy, what do you think is off limits? Is there anything, off limits? Jim, do you think there's anything off limits in comedy? You're not particularly polarizing anymore because you're made of nothing but love and probably a little bit of existentialism. Elliott, do you think there's anything? My official stance is no, there is nothing off limits in comedy, but that doesn't mean that I don't find certain jokes offensive or unfunny, though in fairness, usually I find jokes so aggressively unfunny that they become offensive and I'm offended by them on account of their unfunniness. So it's the unfunny comes first. And then I'm offended. I'm not offended and therefore find it unfunny. Does that make any sense? No? Okay, well. Sometimes people sound deep, but they're not really saying anything. Personally, I don't want to hear a joke about rape or the Holocaust or a school shooting unless it's hilarious. The problem is the moment I say, yeah, I don't think rape should be joked about, somebody else can come along and they can go, right? Yeah, I don't think so either. Also murder. And I can go, what do you mean also murder? I think murder can be joked about. I just don't like when rape is joked about. And they can go, yeah, also aioli. And I go, what did you say aioli? And they're like, yeah, I did say aioli. I'm like, what do you have against people making jokes about aioli? And they're like, well, I don't like when people make jokes about mayonnaise seasoned with garlic. And I'm like, why don't you like jokes about mayonnaise seasoned with garlic? And they're like, because I happen to love all types of aioli and I feel like they should be treated like normal condiments instead of these sort of offshoot condiments. I'm like, well, they kind of are an offshoot condiment. I'm like, he's like, well, every condiment is an offshoot condiment if you think about it because it's just all different ingredients, but aioli is a perfect example. In fact, the culinary equivalent of the sum of something being greater than its individual parts. I'm like, honestly, dude, I can't argue with you there. And then he's like, actually, come to think of it, why isn't mayonnaise in the caddy when you sit down at the table? I'm like, holy crap, I think you're right. Why is the mayonnaise never there? You got ketchup, you got mustard, you have to specifically ask for the mayonnaise. And then I'm like, you know what, I wonder if it's because when you sit down and you see mayonnaise sitting out, something in us doesn't want to see mayonnaise in a lukewarm environment because it kind of makes us think that it might be unhealthy because you think mayonnaise, you think eggs, you don't want to see eggs just sort of sitting around plopping everywhere. It's a little bit grosser. But then when you ask for mayonnaise, the server comes and they bring you a little thing of mayonnaise that you can tell just directly came out of something, and it's always lukewarm. It's never cold, because nobody wants cold mayonnaise. You want your mayonnaise to be lukewarm, but when it comes, it's lukewarm, which means it's just sitting in the back lukewarm, because they don't want it to be lukewarm in front of you, because we don't want to see mayonnaise because it reminds us of something. And then you start peeling back the layers, and you start realizing that all forms of reality have been curated for our sense of safety and well-being, which means if that is a lie to us, then what else is a lie to us? And you start going down this wormhole. The next thing you know, you're in a padded room, and you're going a little bit crazy. So it actually makes a lot of sense. And then 7 years go by, you're in a straitjacket, you got a beard, which you're very proud of, because it's really hard for you to grow a beard. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, you haven't made anybody laugh, but you certainly haven't offended anybody. Thank God you haven't made any rape jokes or any murder jokes, and certainly not any aioli jokes, because those are nothing to freaking joke about. President Trump, in his inauguration speech, said America first. I think that's great. He can be America first. I am jokes first. A lot of people are Jesus first, and they're LGBT first. Maybe they're women first, or their children first, or their Black Lives Matter first. I personally am jokes first. For me, jokes are what save me on a daily basis. And in my opinion, my guess is that no matter what your circumstances are in life, jokes could probably have at times saved you. Or maybe they've at least alleviated some pain that you've been through. And I think jokes, even and especially when they're offensive, have helped me remember that life is short and beautiful and absurd, and most of all worth fighting through. And to be honest, I love creating them, and it's my favorite thing to do. I'm so thankful that I get to work in an industry where I get to create jokes. Like, I think that's probably what I feel most blessed about in life. And some of the jokes are good, and some of them are really lame, and some of them are offensive, and at their best, though, I think that some occasionally can be illuminating. And I do take jokes and the protection of jokes pretty seriously, and I get kind of angry when the joke is put on trial and shackles are put on it and limitations are put on it, and it ends up being framed for murder when all it was trying to do was make you laugh and come alive for a second and forget about the weight of the world. So can any joke be too offensive? Absolutely. Of course. Everybody has their own baggage. Sometimes a joke hits somebody the wrong way. That's their right. They can experience that. Being offended at someone finding offense at something you said is the definition of a self-defeating argument. You're committing the crime of which you're accusing them. I think for me, the joke is like one of the last pure things in the world. And so when a comedy writer is attacked for writing comedy, I get very angry, and I don't get angry at a whole lot. But comedy writers and comedians, they're the ones that have the mirror to society. They're the ones, more so than politicians or preachers, that we should be listening to and learning from for ourselves, rather than holding them to some ever-changing standard of culture. So that's my personal opinion on that. And I did a video on a series of offensive jokes that I'll link to in the description that you can check out if you'd like. And thanks for watching. And I think SNL was dumb for suspending that writer, but I also, people get offended, and that's all fine and dandy. And then I just start repeating the whole thing over and over again. It's like, and I just say everything backwards. Sometimes that helps. Hey, thanks for watching my videos. I'm really enjoying making them. If you want to like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts in the comments, I actually would appreciate it. I've had a great time. So thank you, and have a great rest of your week. Bye. Rest of the week. Sometimes he stutters.